Hi guys, I'm back with The Boy Who Sailed the Ocean in an Armchair. Before we start, really quickly, they talk about, Beckett talks about paper cranes, doesn't he, making them. And I thought some of you may not know what they are, so I thought I'll make one. So I made one at home to show you. This is an origami paper crane. Its head's not ideal, but you get the idea. So these are what he's making to get that wish, and I think they said it's 1,000 of these you need to make to get your wish. So that's just an idea. So maybe you could have a go at making one of those if you fancy it. I actually really enjoyed making mine and felt very, very accomplished at the end. Maybe you could try. I'll pop it here. Chapter 11. At midday, Mr. Beagle puts his hand in the air indicating we're done. And before he even says a word, everyone starts charging to the coach as if they're a herd of buffalo being chased by a tiger. Everyone scatters, taking seats here and there. I hear Sam Swiss holler about health and safety, namely his. He doesn't want to be trampled by the stampede. By the time I get on the coach, there's only 2 seats at the front for Mr. Beagle and Mrs. Dixon, and 1 at the back beside Knuckles. When I look at him, he turns away. Normally, this would be enough to make me scarper, but there's nowhere else to go, so I slope down the aisle and squeeze in beside him. Outside, I see Goatee Guy sneezing into his hand. A few people wave at him, and then Mrs. Dixon and Mr. Beagle appear by the coach. Mr. Beagle shakes Goatee Guy's hand. As Mr. Beagle's looking at his soggy hand, everyone on the coach starts pointing and laughing. It's total quality. Once Mr. Beagle and Mrs. Dixon are on board, Sam Swiss swings out of the garden centre's gates and starts shouting that we should all have a sing-along. How about 100 green bottles? While everyone else starts singing, I pluck up the courage to tell Knuckles that I'm sorry if I said something wrong about his dad. Abitha Nanny used to say I spoke before I put my brain in gear, only you can't put brains in gear anyway. Knuckles grunts and says he's still not talking about his dad, so I can stop fishing. My dad loves fishing, I reply, hoping to strike up a conversation. But Knuckles isn't having it. Instead, he turns away and presses his nose against the window. It leaves a greasy mark on the glass. He delivers to all the local restaurants, I continue. I bet you've eaten his fish. Only if it's frozen and comes in a box from the corner shop. We can't afford to go to restaurants. It's hard because Mum doesn't have much money coming in, what with Dad. The words trail off. Oh, I offer, you could catch your own fish. I've done that before. Once I've started talking about catching fish, it's like I'm on a roller coaster and can't get off. And I start saying how you need maggots, and then how Dad always says if you begin thinking you'll catch a fish from the head, but really it's from the heart. And how that's like life, because you start off trying to figure everything out with your head, but sometimes you should just let your heart talk. Knuckles turns around and asks me what I'm waffling on about. Nothing, I squeak, and Knuckles snorts, and for the rest of the journey he pretends to be asleep. But I swear I see the tiniest glitter of a tear in the corner of his closed eye. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. Was it because I talked about fish this time? The coach crawls through the streets of Eden and I stare out the window. Knuckles gives a tiny snore as we pass the arcades at the far end of town, their bulbs blinking and the sequin discs on the signs fluttering and catching the sunlight. The bus passes the big supermarket and then Bean's coffee shop. I see sunlight glinting on a bald man's head. After a double take, I realise it is sunlight glinting on my dad's bald head. I'd recognise it anywhere because I've had to look at it enough times and be reminded that when I get older, that'll be me too. Luckily, Sam Swiss is crawling along so I can see everything in slow motion, like we're in some action movie. Dad, standing outside the coffee shop, looking nothing like someone in an action movie, talking to a tall, pencil-thin woman with blonde candy floss hair. She's wearing this pale pink dress that looks like a small cake. They smile at each other and I feel like telling Sam Swiss to stop the bus, I want to get off. But I don't. Instead, I just stare at the woman. I don't recognise her. In her pink dress, she looks fancier than a fondant fancy. If the Garden of Eden hadn't charged me a full £3 for a pencil and a notebook, I would have bet my last 50 pence that the lady doing the smiling was Camille. This is the apocalypse. Dad is meeting this Camille woman behind our backs, sneaking out to Bean's coffee shop and drinking frothy mocha chocolatino lattes when we think he's delivering haddocks. Billy doesn't shut up the whole way through dinner, but I barely speak to Dad, and when he asks if I'm feeling okay, I say never better, which is what I've heard grown-ups say when they've never felt worse. Abitha Nanny used to say it all the time when she had a headache from drinking too much sherry. Dad says I'm looking a bit peaky and did my school trip go okay? I learned a lot, I mumble through Mr. Wong's prawn toast. Some things I didn't want to learn. The toast does a circuit of my mouth before it reaches the palatine uvula. A oblivious, Dad says. Learning's always a good thing. Even if it's something bad? I raise my eyebrows. Dad thinks for a second and says that we can't sweep bad things under the carpet. Like in history, many bad things happened, but we can't pretend they didn't. Oh, I mutter, wishing I could pretend seeing Dad and Camille together hadn't happened. And Pearl and Naked Man, I wish I could pretend that hadn't happened too. Dad asks if the food's okay. He says he won £10 on a scratch card and thought we should have takeaway as a treat. Although we still have takeaway every night, so it's not much of a treat. I bring a forkful of noodles up to my mouth and nod, but I can't even taste them. That's how bad I'm feeling at the moment. My mood hasn't improved much after dinner either. I'm sitting in our bedroom reading my book on healing herbs when Billy trots in, saying I have a face like a wet welly. When I tell Billy it's a wet weekend, he shakes his head and says in his world it's a wet welly. Next he says he knows what will cheer me up, and he skips over to his box and brings out his robotic arm. Fat lot of good that is, I mumble sourly. When Billy explains that the robotic hand will help us on the next Snoop mission, I repeat, fat lot of good that is. Anyway, we found Pearl yesterday, I snap. We just didn't speak to her, so that means that Snoop is doomed. We had the chance to complete our mission, but we failed. What's the point in finding Pearl if we don't even talk to her? Spies have to complete their missions properly and then close the case. Billy's eyes widen. Oh, no, 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 Snoop is not doomed. He waves the robotic hand in the air, narrowly missing the light bulb. Once in Snoop, always in Snoop. We can't give up on our second mum, not ever. The case is still open. Billy explains that it was his fault we didn't talk to Pearl at the church hall. I was very silly and got all cross because I thought the Rudy Nudie man was Pearl's boyfriend, but he wasn't. I'm listening now. How do you know? Perhaps Billy's discovered something new. Maybe Pearl hasn't got a new boyfriend and Dad doesn't have a new girlfriend and the world isn't a complete mess with us in the middle of it. Well, Billy pauses, his eyes glittering. They're not a couple because the Rudy Nudie man's an emperor. Okay, I've stopped listening. This is another one of Billy's crazy ideas. When I say to Billy that the naked man is not an emperor, Billy says he is, and he'll explain. Please don't, I reply. No, really, please don't. Ignoring me, Billy begins. The Rudy Nudie man is an emperor because everyone knows that the emperor had these invisible clothes, and everyone also knows he was a horrible man and he thought everyone else was stupid. But really, he was the stupid one. Anyway, Pearl wouldn't have a boyfriend that was stupid, so they're not a couple. Boom! 7-year-old Billy's logic is so far-fetched a dog would have to go to the moon to bring it back. Obviously, I tell him there's no way I'm going back to the church to speak to Pearl. For Billy's information, one side of Naked Man is all my stomach will take. At this point, I'm tempted to tell Billy the truth about Pearl and Naked Man. They are a couple. I saw it with my own eyes. What if... I pause and nibble the skin around my nails. I mean, what if... This is harder than the world's biggest Sudoku puzzle, but I need to say it. What if the Naked Man was Pearl's boyfriend? I suck in the air, waiting for Billy's reply. Nah, says Billy flatly. Like I said, I have a new mission for Snoop, and it is... There's an internal drum roll going on in my head. Ring Pearl. Seriously, this is getting silly now. I tell Billy we tried it before and Pearl didn't reply. No, we texted her and she didn't reply, continues Billy, being all smart. Well, Dad said we couldn't ring Pearl, I reply, being all smart back. We're not going to actually ring her, snaps Billy, being so smart I'm confused. He waves his toy robotic hand at me. This thing could ring. I half expect Billy to say, I'm a poet and I didn't know it, but clearly he doesn't know it because he doesn't say it, so we just move on. Billy slips out into the hallway, picks up the phone and returns with it. He looks at me and then the phone and nods. Clearly it's all systems go on Planet Billy. 5. The phone is placed on Billy's bed. 4. Billy tells me to call out Pearl's number. 3. Billy begins to punch in the digits using the robotic hand. 2. We're through to Balti Towers. Billy wants poppadoms. I make him hang up. I don't have any pocket money to pay for them. 1. Next attempt, and apparently we're through to Killer's Kickboxing. This time Billy hangs up and says he doesn't want to talk to any killers. I say I think it was probably Kelly's Kickboxing. We're never any good at hearing names properly. Abitha Nana says we don't listen. Truth is, grown-ups never say anything interesting anyway. 0. We have liftoff. The robotic hand, operated at a distance by Billy, has punched in Pearl's number correctly. Billy hisses that I should speak because I'm the oldest. I say I don't want to. I say he should speak because it was his idea. Billy says it was Brian's idea. My mouth drops open because I can't put a snail on the line. Suddenly, we hear Pearl's voice. Hello, I'm not here at the moment, but if you'd like to leave your name and number, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I grab the phone off the bed and hang up as Billy's eyes fill like a paddling pool. Why didn't you say it was you? Billy snivels. He wipes his nose with the robotic hand and then winces when he realises it hurts. I don't know, maybe I just couldn't think of what to say. No worries, said Billy brightly, setting down the robotic hand. Brian can do all the talking. Well, he's very chatty. As Billy is marching over to Brian's penthouse shoebox, the phone rings by itself. My first thought is, it's Pearl calling us back. Quickly, I pick it up and connect before mumbling, hello. My ears are nearly blasted off by Abitha Nana's booming, hello, back. Anyone would think she needed to speak louder because she was calling from Spain. Abitha Nana hot-footed it to Spain a couple of years ago after Grandad Albert's death for a new beginning in a quiet life. I pointed out that Abitha Nana was nearly 70, so it wasn't really a new beginning, more a new ending. But Abitha Nana didn't listen because she was babbling on about how it was time to do her own thing, even though she'd been doing her own thing since Dad left home, which was over 20 years ago. Off she went to Abitha, promising to keep in touch with us by phone. Sometimes I miss her, but she rings us every week to talk about sun, sand, sangria and her sciatica. Normally I'd like to have a full conversation about sciatica because it's on page 32 of Marvin's medical manual, but now isn't the time, so I yell to Dad to come to the phone. Dad's footsteps patter down the hallway and I lean out of the bedroom and hand him the hallway phone, saying it's Abitha Nana on the line. Dad rolls his eyes and wipes some custard cream crumbs off his t-shirt before taking the phone from me. I duck back into the bedroom to find Billy started using my bed as his own personal trampoline. Out in the hallway I hear Dad telling Abitha Nana not to worry because we're eating like kings. What? Burger Kings? Billy's jumping so high now that his head's nearly battering the ceiling, but that's not what's troubling me most. I swear I've just heard Dad tell Abitha Nana he's made a bit of a mess of things with Pearl. Who would have thought you could actually strain your ears? I just have, trying to make out what Dad's on about. Thing is, when he mentions Pearl, his voice goes all hush-hush, and when he's talking about mackerel, he shouts so loud they could hear him in Timbuktu. 5 minutes later, I've grown bored listening, and I'm looking at the goodbye list again, noting what I've tried and what I haven't. The shrine was a failure when Billy demolished it. The tattoo nearly took my skin off because I had to use a nail brush to remove it. Even with scrubbing, I couldn't get some of the letters off and was left with God on my hands for days. Mimi stopped me at school, pointed at it and said, "You wish." The seeds were pointless. The balloon was wrong too. The star was beautiful, but not right. The sparklers were a lost cause because I couldn't buy any, and the poem, well, let's just say, I thought the poem would be ace and would bring a smile to my face, but soon I knew as a poet I was through because I couldn't really rhyme and it didn't say goodbye to Mum properly anyway. There are only 2 things left on the goodbye list. Number 9, just say goodbye. And finally number 10, which is nothing because I still haven't come up with a number 10 yet. As I'm muttering goodbye over and over, Billy's attempting the world record for the number of bounces one small boy can do to annoy his older brother into kicking him in the shins. Let's just say my metatarsals are ready to take action. The phone rings again in the hall. 553, huffs Billy, bouncing up in the air. 554, 555. At first, I think Abitha Nana's probably forgotten to tell Dad something about her bunions and ringing back. Tilting my head, I listen to Dad pad back to the phone. Only this time, when he talks to the person on the other end, his voice is less sing-song. In fact, he's all hush-hush again, and I try to tell Billy to shush, only he's too busy counting and tells me to go shush. I shush him again, and it's like we're in a shushing competition. Only because I've got bionic ears do I hear Dad hissing quietly, "Pearl, how did you get this new number? You're not allowed to contact me. You know this is serious." And that's the end of the chapter. Cool, that was a sudden ending. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, we'll be back for chapter 12 tomorrow. Okay, thanks guys. See you later.